Welcome to the Coach's Table Podcast, where coaches come to grow personally and professionally through real-world application and online education. What is going on, everybody? Man, August is flying by. It's so crazy that preseason is on. It's so crazy that college football starts next week, which is exciting for some teams and also not exciting for those teams that are going to lose. So there's always a winner and a loser, but it's so great because the summers, I don't know about y'all, but the summers just absolutely fly by for me. It's crazy. We think that we have time to do this, and that. And then it's like those 90 days, those 120 days just freaking move. And it's so fast. But I'm super excited to get into the season, super excited for everybody because football is on now. And it's great because it's literally on, I think, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, something like that. So you can't be upset about that. But guys, we do have a guest on today, and she's awesome. We've been talking for a very long time prior to even hitting the record button, which is great. But before I bring her on and formally introduce her, guys, do us a huge favor. Okay, if you enjoy the show, share the show. Okay, that's the only way the show grows. And it takes 10 seconds of your life to share the show, whether you're listening on Spotify or on YouTube, because we do the full-length episodes on YouTube as well. And it takes 10 seconds for you to leave a review. Okay, the review is super important as well because it lets other coaches, other sports, other athletes know that this podcast is valuable. So do two things. One, share the show if you get value out of this. And then two, leave a review. On Spotify, it takes 10 seconds. On YouTube, it takes 10 seconds. That's my only ask of y'all. So if you could do that, that'd be much appreciated. And that is for every single episode. You guys are doing a great job of growing, which is awesome. But we need you to share the show and we need you to leave a review. Okay, that is the biggest component. So without further ado, good friend of mine, Mrs. Jill Brown. What's going on?
Nothing much. Just 1 week into football camp, volleyball starting up, soccer starting up. So, like you said, just starting to get back into it, and the craziness is about to begin. So,
yes, this is the calm before the storm,
yeah.
if they will. I'm like looking at my week this week, and we were kind of talking about. I'm like, yeah, I don't have anything to do. I don't have any teams. I'm like, cool. Like, I'm not going in, or I'm not going in till this time.
Yeah.
And then it's like when next week comes, it's like, boom,
Yes.
you're so busy.
Trying to savor the sleeping in as long as I can. So
Yes.
once teams start rolling at 5:30 again. So
which is crazy because what I found out about you, and this is maybe opposite to a lot of strength coaches, is you're not a morning person. I'm not either. If I could sleep till 9-ish every day, life would be good. 8-ish, 8, 9-ish, awesome. Very, very optimal because I'm a night owl. So I don't mind going to bed at like midnight, 1 o'clock, which is bad. And for anybody listening that hears me preach, like, go to bed at this time. And I'm like, yeah. But it's like, I prefer to stay up later than get up earlier. That's just me personally.
Yeah. No. And while we were talking about, I've been asked multiple times, like in interviews or just in general, like, what's your least favorite part of your job? And it's not the crappy athletes that sometimes cross our path. It's not sport coaches. It's not the hours. It is literally getting up really early at the butt crack of dawn. But you're never going to walk in my weight room at 6 a.m. and know that. Like you got to fake it till you make it. And then once you start, you get going. But there's multiple times on my way to work, I like have the windows down, music blasting, and I will scream to wake myself up. Like it has happened sometimes in my office just to really get it going. But
get it going.
Yeah, but you just got to get the juices flowing, and then it's all fine. But yeah, mornings are not my forte. I'm not waking up at 4:30 in the morning if it's a Sunday.
You know what's the scariest part is like when you're driving and you completely zone out for X amount of time and then you like snap back to it and you're like, how did I get to here? Am I okay? Like, did I hurt anybody?
Get in an accident? Did a deer cross? Was I swerving? Like
literally, you're like, was I even listening to music? I can't remember if I'm listening to music. And then it's like now everything's like your senses. It's like, oh shit, bro. Like,
or the worst is like maybe you had a bad day at work. The worst drives are when you're so focused on like what happened, you don't even have music playing, and you're just like,
oh yeah. Yes, that's so true.
And then like 20 minutes or like I live 25 minutes from work, so then like 15 minutes in, you're like what have I even been doing? Like, you're like, I need to put
Literally,
music on. Like, I look like a
yeah.
psycho.
Yeah. That's it's so funny because like okay, at my previous stops I've lived either like on campus, super close to work, like within like 30 seconds, and I don't mean that like as an exaggeration. I mean that in a very literal sense. And I got down here and I'm like, I need to be 20 minutes away minimum. And they're like, really? You want to drive that far? I'm like, that is my decompression period. That is my time for me to get excited for the day. And I was like, that's also my time that says when I leave work, I'm done. Don't call, don't text, because I'll talk to you tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's so funny how many coaches like want to live so close just in case I got to be there. And I'm like, screw that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm driving 20 minutes, 25 minutes because I want to separate. I need to separate, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah,
go ahead.
Luther, Decorah is such a small town, so
So small.
everyone lived, well, some people lived out of town, but almost every coach lived within 5 minutes. And it was nice, like going home for lunch and whatever, and you took 5 minutes to get home. But no, like I still have to come home for lunch because of my dog. But yes, it's
Sure.
kind of nice to like legitimately separate. And then also in the mornings, like listen to a podcast or on the way home,
Yes.
listen to a
Yes.
podcast, listen to music, get yourself hyped up. Like that
Hmm.
drive, I also like driving. So like that
Yeah.
drive time is valuable for that. But
Yeah.
I will say it was nice in the regard of like, if I forget something, like it was
Sure.
nice to be a minute away. But
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah, 100%. It's my time. I'm a podcast guy, obviously. I also love to call people. That's one of my like nice things too. And I don't mean people that I work with. I mean everybody else outside of that because I just talk to them all day. All right,
Right.
we'll talk later. But yeah, I like to call people. It's like a perfect 20-ish minutes to like have a conversation where like you got what you wanted out of it, but you didn't stay for an hour, overextend your time with them. So it's like the perfect, hey, I got 20 minutes. Okay, cool. I'll catch you, you know? I love
Right.
that.
Except at 5 a.m., the only people that will answer the phone are going to be other strength coaches.
My dad, my
Oh,
dad. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
just my dad. Yeah, my dad might be up then too.
Yeah.
So
They're
maybe I
up
should give
then.
him a call
Yeah. And
on the way
it's
to
like,
work.
yeah, exactly. Hey, you check a lot of boxes doing that, you know? Like, but that's awesome. So, oh, wow.
Sorry.
Jewel, you're good. You're good. So Jewel, how did that come about? For those that don't know, you were a GA there, and then you left, and now you're back. Kind of talk us through that a little bit.
So fall of 2019, I started at William Jewell as a GA. Gage Rozier hired me as his GA, probably the greenest person in the candidate pool. He took a risk, and I'm forever indebted and thankful to him for that. I learned a lot. Obviously, we had COVID that spring, so
Yeah,
learned a lot through that and adapting. Thank God for Team Builder, subtle plug
let's
during
go.
COVID. But was there for 2 years, and then in the spring of 2021, when I was about to graduate, him and I talked about me staying on staff, so I was able to stay on staff as a part-time assistant. Um, Obviously, we know part-time assistant, you're not getting paid that much.
Yep.
I was obviously able to make it work, but also just for my own personal development, needed a full-time opportunity. So actually, the person who was a GA before me, Miles Clifton at Jewel, he was the director at Luther College. So
Mm,
him and Gage were best friends. Miles needed an assistant, and it worked out perfectly. So I got my
nice.
first full-time opportunity in the fall of 2021. After, so I stayed until the end of volleyball season because volleyball was one of
Mhm.
my main teams at the time. So I got to Luther November like 15th of 2021. Kind of really good timing with like just I got to just dive in and get to know the athletes because then it was like
Mm,
Thanksgiving break and Christmas break. So there wasn't much where I was needed to like dive into programming. It was just like get to know the athletes for a couple weeks, and that was really nice. Um, so then fast forward, stayed the assistant through July of 2022. Miles took a new opportunity in the private sector, kind of late timing to try and find a football strength coach.
yeah.
So they opened the job. At the time, I was not interested at all. Like if, and we'll get to this, but if you would have asked me a year ago, if I wanted to ever be a head strength coach or director of athletic performance or whatever you want to call it, I
Sure.
would have laughed at you and said no, because I didn't feel like I was ready, but I also
Mm,
didn't feel like I would ever be ready. And like, I guess this is something I can touch on that after I
sure.
am done explaining my path.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but so then July 2022, we get to like August, a little like probably a week before this time in August, and
Mm,
they just didn't feel like any of the candidates were what they wanted.
sure.
So I sit down with the AD and our offensive coordinator, and he is CSCS. He was the strength coach at the high school he previously was at. Had a really good strength conditioning department, or program running with what he had going on. So talk with the AD. Okay, he's gonna take football. You're gonna take all the other 21 sports. And so I was like, holy freaking crap! Like, whether I want to be a head strength coach or not, it's happening right now. I'm in
Yeah.
charge. And so, like, had to meet with all the coaches, get the schedules together, and we were really fortunate. I had basically a professional intern working with me. She was an alum and just wasn't certified, so she was just my right hand woman for everything,
Sure.
which was a lifesaver and like a great opportunity for her because now she's taking my job at Luther. So really,
Nice.
really
Nice.
cool, kind of full circle moment. But anyways, so last fall I was the, I guess you could say, interim head strength coach at Luther. I don't think we ever
Mhm.
really titled it, but obviously still helped with football. But we let him take the lead on it, and I just took the rest of the sports. I think the fall went really well. I mean, I learned a lot. I failed and like figured out what works, what
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, they opened up the job again in December, and I decided to apply. So at the time, I guess my title was assistant.
Sure.
Um, Applied for the job, and they felt that two candidates were what they wanted. So they made myself and another gentleman, Shane Miller, co-directors of athletic performance, which is a really unique situation. Obviously, I knew Luther, so I was able to, in my role, like help him kind of get the ropes. But then we made decisions together,
Sure.
um, which we're both young. I think it was a really ex- good for both of us to just get that like director experience, but we had each other to like really help each other with stuff. Like, obviously as a staff, like, even if it was director assistant, you're still kind of bouncing
Yeah.
ideas, but with us it
Yeah.
was like it's on both of us to make these decisions. So
Mm,
I
mm,
think that did prepare me for this opportunity at Jewel.
sure.
And then fast forward to May, they opened the job at Jewel. I didn't think I wanted it. And then in June again, I was contacted, hey, apply for this job. I was like, I don't know. And I just asked a bunch of questions.
Sure.
And um, everything just happened so easily. Like the interview, like it was just like, I mean, because I knew the coaches, it was like a
Right.
conversation. Finding my housing was so simple. Like everything just happened so easily.
Sure.
And to me, that was a sign that like this is the right move. And
Mm,
so now here I am. I started July 10th was my first day. That first month was just like trying to get my
yeah.
feet under me and
Yeah.
organize everything how I wanted it and meet with coaches. And I mean, I'm really fortunate that a lot of our sport coaches have been there for a while. So I knew
Right.
a lot of them. A lot of them, like I've got a unique situation where like I've already got buy-in from them because I've worked
Mm,
with their teams. So that
mm,
helps me a lot. And I think the biggest thing for me is Gage Rozier was the director here for 5 years. He had a great system of just how to flow the athletes through the weight room, how to build buy-in with athletes, just the way he coached, and that he just taught me everything that I know, right? Like I'm still learning from other people, but like the
of course.
basis of the way I am as a coach is because of him. And I think that a lot of the things that he had in place made our department a well-oiled machine. So like a big piece of what I'm trying to do over this first year is kind of bring some of that back now, maybe like with my own twist or just
Sure.
adjusting based on what our athletes need now versus 3 years ago. But
Hmm.
I think just like those systems and that organization piece is going to be really important for our athletes. I think a piece that they've been missing. Um, but yeah, like as far as like being a director, I don't think you're ever ready for like if you wait until you're ready, like you're going to be waiting forever, and that's for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna. I will be very vulnerable, and that's how I am. I'm very vulnerable about just everything.
Yeah.
I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't crapping my pants, like and scared, and like, but also I know that anything that fails, like I'm going to learn from it, and nothing's gonna fail, like unless like I literally kill every athlete. Like that would be the only thing that could
Let's knock on
possibly
some wood there.
right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have my wood death, but that
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
the
yeah,
only
yeah.
thing that could literally go so wrong that
Mm,
I would be like, dang, like maybe I shouldn't have done this. But
sure.
anything like from flow or like, okay, I hated that exercise, I won't program it again, or I hated that warm up, I won't do it again. Like our job is so easily I mean, you have to learn to be adaptable, you have to be able to adapt,
Yeah.
but anything we do, it's not difficult to change it if we don't like it. So,
Mm,
I don't know, that's a big thing that again, if you would have asked me a year ago, will you apply for the director job at William Jewell when it opens? I would have said no. I love William Jewell College, but no. But like Luther provided me with the opportunity, a really unique opportunity that a lot of people don't get to just be handed like here
sure.
you have to step in as this role. And so I was scared then, but it helped me. It just helped me grow a lot. So um I think a big thing is again, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, but I'm also always going to be the same person. So like
Mm,
that's one thing I learned last year is like athletes read into BS. Like they read into the fakeness, they read into
yeah,
all of that. So just being myself with them and the way that I want to run my department is the same again, same as like Gage like yes, we're going to program evidence-based, science-based like we're going to do everything we can with the intention of making you bigger, faster, stronger, more explosive, etc. What every strength coach is
sure.
trying to do. But a big thing for me is building relationships. And I think a lot of coaches say that and don't really mean it. I think, yeah, like I don't even know an example, but like like we talked about before, like I want to be at as many practices and
Sure.
games as I can. Like that's important, just showing face. But also like when we're doing like I don't know, mobility or the warm up, like don't just stand there. Like I will get in your face and be like, "How where are you from? Where did you graduate? What's how many siblings do you have?" Like they probably are like, "Shut up. It's 6 a.m. I don't want to talk about this." But like
Yeah.
I think there's just so much value in actually knowing these kids
Mm,
and something that I've told our coaches too, like we have almost 560 athletes at Jewel. Like, will I get to know every waking detail about every single one of them? No. And yeah, half of the teams like aren't my direct responsibility, so I won't get to see them as much. But like something important to me is I want to know every single athlete's name on this campus. Like today with football, we were doing like we had our lift and then our finisher was like they had to all lay on the ground and we did some neck stuff and I was like okay before we do this I'm gonna go and like name all of you and they were like so excited when I knew their name but like there's
yeah.
just so much value in that
No, that's
and
facts. Yeah,
you
facts
know
there.
like instead of saying hey you like I'll ask you but I'm not just gonna say hey you I'll say remind me of your name or like what's your last name or whatever like because that's so important to me and
Yeah. Yeah.
again, probably easier for me right now because I know half of the athletes because I
Sure.
had them 2 years ago. Um, but like I'm gonna try and be at as many of the lifts as I can because I want to be able to know like, yeah, I'm not gonna work directly with track and field, but I want to know, oh, this sprinter did this great thing, and I want to know like who they are.
Right.
I just think there's so much value in that because that's how you build trust. Is if like you can say you care about the relationships, um, but just like trying to be motivational and do the motivational spiels in the weight room at the end of the lift like yeah that shows you care about them but like what are you going out of your way to do and I don't think enough coaches mean that they
Mm.
care about the relationship piece. I'll get off my soapbox there.
No, you're good. I love it. No, I do. I love it because I think it's a very interesting point. One of the things, well, you said a lot of interesting things, so we'll touch on a couple of them. But one of the things that and we'll start with the last thing that you just said about getting to know their name. Like, so simple, so simple. And I would extend it, like you said, further than just knowing the name. Like, where are you from? Brothers and sisters? What other sports did you play? Do you have a significant other? What does that look like? Like, and just care for them, like I would for you, or any of the other coaches, or all that stuff, right? Because then that allows you to like joke with them. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like, and one of the things that we tell our interns here is before you critique them, whether it's on an exercise or whatever, say their name. And if
Yep.
you don't know their name, then ask them, hey, excuse me, I'm sorry. Can you remind me of your name, please? I'm so silly, I forgot. Ha 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 ha. Okay, thanks, Jill. Hey, Jill, when you do this, etc., go from there. And then that's why I said, hey, look, if you don't know their name, make a joke out of it, right?
Yep.
Blame yourself because it shows a little bit of humble pie. Blame yourself. Hey, I'm just so XYZ. Stupid, silly, forgot, tired, whatever. It doesn't matter. They'll tell you, their name. Or if you know their nickname, use their nickname too, right? Like all that stuff. Like that would be a big thing, is getting to know their name and their nickname, right? Just like you probably have a nickname as well, but when your parents call you your real name, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
what up, right? Like, so I think that's a really big thing. Another thing, shout out to Team Builder. If you guys, hey, look, if y'all aren't using Team Builder, you are wasting so much time. Like, kind of talk a little bit about that, because you've always had Team Builder. We were kind of talking a little bit. You don't know any Excel formulas, and you don't know, a little bit of Google Sheets here or there. But like, if you were asked to write a workout card and you had to print them off, names, do all that stuff, you would kind of be like, what's going on around here? So how did you kind of get involved with Team Builder, and what are your thoughts from that standpoint?
So yes, big Team Builder stan. I love Team Builder. Again, Gage Rozier brought Team Builder to Jewel. I love Team Builder because it just makes programming so simple, especially data tracking. Like, I know there are formulas and whatever that you can do in Excel. That's great. But, like,
That's great.
like love that for you.
That's great,
Love that
but
for you. And I do want to learn. I do want to learn it, but like I want to learn other things that's like not high on my bucket list. And sorry to anyone that's offended by that. Um, but no, Team Builder is so great for data tracking. Now the kids have to input the information,
of course.
like we talked about. But the biggest things, and I mean, like, I don't know how you have your athletes fill it
Mhm.
out, but I'm like, anything you added weight to, that's what I need. Like, I don't need you to fill out that you did a band pull apart with a band. I know you did. Like, I
Sure.
know that you did that. Now, yeah, I want you to get in the habit of filling it out, because that way, especially when you're here, do it. That way, when you're home for the summer, it's easy for you.
Sure.
Um, but the biggest thing I like to use it for, that again, like Gage Rozier's just getting all the plugs right now. Our Farm
Yeah.
Performance, go our farm
Let's go.
distillery. If you're ever in Mountain City, Missouri, go to their
Yeah,
distillery.
because if you're a strength coach and you don't drink, you're not actually like a strength coach. You know what I'm
Like, what
saying?
are you
Like,
doing?
literally, what are you doing? But anyways, yeah.
But wellness surveys, daily wellness surveys is something that we've implemented, and it's, I think, like anything you're asking 18 to 22-year-olds to fill out, like, is it going to be a perfect system? No, I don't think there's a perfect system, except for like, you know, catapult or polar tracking, like all of those type of recovery things. Like, yeah, that's going to be accurate. But getting the feedback from the athletes themselves on this
Yeah.
survey, I just think holds so much value. One, it shows like, oh, they care about like how I'm feeling actually. Um, and two, just looking at it again from a wide lens. So we ask them 5 questions, hours of sleep, and then on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low, 5 being high, they rank their quality of sleep, mood, energy, and soreness.
Mhm.
And we have it so it spits out like a number, their point total. We have
Yep.
it that anything below 18 is a low score, just based on like unless they got 0 hours of sleep and did fives across the board. Like average 18 is pretty average or low on all of those
Sure.
items. So again, not perfect, but I put it in a Google sheet. I have their names,
Let's go.
and so I color code it, and so I'll just like have volleyball, all of the roster, the date.
Mhm.
And I typically have them fill it out the days they lift and definitely game days. But say like August 17th, and then I highlight their name or like that box yellow if they just didn't fill it out, and then red if it's below 18. So if it's just white, that means they were good. I started doing green if it was above like 25, just to show like they're feeling really good. But I don't think you necessarily have to do that. But really, what we're looking for is trends. So like
Mhm.
if you had a low score one day and it's because you didn't sleep, and then there's also a comment section. So say that you put in
Right.
your comment section, didn't sleep because I was up all night studying. And it's like, okay, like that's not normal for him. This has just happened. We're really looking for trends. So across the board, like it has been able to spark conversations where they're sleeping okay, but their mood and their energy are consistently like a 1 or a 2. And their
Mm.
score is like 14, 15, 16, like days in a row. We're able to send that data to coach because maybe coach has no idea what's going on, and they've been ripping into this athlete for sucking at practice, but not asking like, hey, what's going on? Hey,
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't leave anything in the comments, but they're showing low energy, low mood, and not sleeping great. Maybe let's have a conversation. And then we find out, oh, my girlfriend boyfriend broke up with me, a family member passed away, or just family stuff going on. Like you never know.
Yeah.
Um, Luckily, I think with like I know on our campus we've got a lot of mental health resources that our athletes are more open, but still you're going to have athletes that aren't going to be as open. So I think that the wellness survey, and you can like kind of structure it however you want, but this is the
Mhm.
structure that we found really works for us.
Mhm.
um we really like it. I think that athletes know that it's just me seeing it, like their teammates can't see it. And their coach can. And
Right.
I'll ask, like, normally I would reach out to the athlete, hey, this is going on. Is it okay if I bring this up to coach? Like, someone's got to find out. Now, obviously, if they're saying, like, really bad things in the comments, that's like, okay, I got to let coach know. But for the most part, it's just like mood and energy, soreness, like whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But I really love it in season because, especially for me, it allows me to adjust my lifts if I need to. Like if they lift and then they're still sore 2 days later, or maybe coach made them run at practice and we're like, hey, let's not do that.
Mm.
Or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it
Yeah.
allows us to adjust what we're doing because obviously it's affecting them. Um, and then on game day, that's obviously the most important. They're sore on game day because of my lift. That's an issue. So
Right.
I need to make sure that I'm adjusting. And now, and I also have to make it very clear, like just because you have a low score doesn't mean coach isn't going to play you. Like it's more of like, oh, maybe we need to take a little bit more time to get warmed up, or maybe like eat a little extra something, or like whatever that looks like. But I think that it has a lot of value whenever I talk to like recruits about it, like their parents love it.
Love it.
Just because it's another
Mm.
touch point for us to check on those athletes. Something else we implemented was a tap test. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's
Mm.
like an app
Yep.
on your phone and you literally
Yep.
just tap.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
like central nervous system readiness. Again, not perfect. I did it with volleyball 2 years ago, and they just, no matter how fried they were, they just like got good at it. So like some of them were getting these
Yeah.
ridiculous scores.
Yeah.
But we're gonna try it again this fall and see. I think it was pretty accurate though. I mean, we stayed pretty healthy that fall, so it
Sure.
wasn't like an indicator of, oh, she had a really low tap from her baseline. Is she gonna get injured? Like we didn't really have issues
Mhm.
with that.
Mhm.
But maybe it was because of the wellness surveys and we were controlling volume. I don't know. But
Well, it's the classic everything affects everything, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the tap test is just again another touch point, another data point.
Mhm.
So like,
Mhm.
okay, if your wellness survey score was low and your tap test score was below your personal baseline, it's like, okay, what's going on?
Right.
Again, not necessarily saying you don't get to play, but are we going to need to just make sure you get a little bit more warmed up or just spark a conversation so we know what's going on?
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the biggest thing. Again, in that piece of caring about the athletes, the relationship with them, like,
Yeah.
are you using this data or are you just making them fill out this survey and then not even looking at it? So like I have sheets created for all of our teams. Like some coaches don't even want to look at it and they don't care about it, but I think it's still valuable to have them fill it out and track it because then maybe coach only wants you to tell them when something's really going bad. And I've had coaches too that have asked me not to have them fill it out because they don't want their athletes thinking about how they feel. And I think that that's doing them a really big disservice. We need to know how we're feeling. We need to be really in tune with how we feel, because if you
Right.
just don't care about how you feel and you're just numb to it, like, you're going to get hurt, you're going to have an outburst, like something's going to happen. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you're not taking, especially if you're not thinking about how you're feeling, then you're not taking care of yourself.
Right.
Like, if you're really sore and you're like, but I just got to push through it. Like, yes, but like, what can we do to take care of our bodies to maybe reduce the soreness or reduce this pain in your knee or like whatever? So I think there's a lot of value in being very, very in tune with how you're feeling. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Amber Selking. She's the
Mm-mm.
sports psychologist for Notre Dame football, or she was. She wrote a book, Winning the Mental Game, and she talks in the book about being extremely aware of everything that is going on with you. So, like,
Mm.
being aware of your thoughts. Like, people think like you're not in control of your thoughts. I agree and disagree. Um,
Yep.
but like, when you have that, especially as an athlete, like, you have this thought of like, I'm not good enough to be on that team. Like, you have the control to change that. Now, I'm not
Mm.
saying that's an easy thing to do,
Right.
but it takes work. But she talks about like your thoughts control your emotions, which controls your physiological response, which
Yep.
controls your performance.
Mm-hmm.
So again, at the end of the day, if you're just having those thoughts, but you don't have the awareness to control them,
Yep.
right? Does that
Yep.
make, like, I just think all of that is so that's why self-awareness and being in tune with yourself as an athlete, as a human, but like especially as an athlete, is so important, because it can save you from a lot of mental, physical injuries, hurt, all of that.
Yep.
So,
I
yeah.
just also think like, I mean, I agree with you. I think you can't fix something if you're not aware of it, right? And the only person that's aware of your body is you. And so it's pertinent and important for you to tell me how you feel, because I can't tell you how you feel. I can't tell you, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I would hope you feel good, but I don't know. And so I just find like the subjective component of it to be extremely valuable. Now, sure, you're going to get athletes that either always vote really low or always vote really high. Like, you know that that's going to happen. And that's just what it is. Like, you just know that, you recognize that, right? But if you don't know, I think that's a bigger issue, if you ask
Yeah.
me. And then to your point of like, some coaches don't care about that. I find many of them don't care about that until it's time to care about that. And then they're like, well, do you have it? And then like, you can either save the day and be like, yes, I do. Or you could be like, no, I don't. Right. And then it's like, oh, now kind of everybody's in some hot water. So
Yep.
the whole classic, like, why am I collecting all this data if I'm not utilizing it? Well, you are the one that can utilize it or not. Right? Like, that's kind of my thing. I'm just like, so, but I also think it's great just to get an understanding of like how they feel. And we're just
Yeah.
talking about like wellness score here. We're not talking about everything else, but we're just talking about wellness score here.
Yeah.
Um, I just think it's easy, it's simple, it's a one-time setup for an everyday use. Like, and then it takes what, 10 minutes for you to look at the
30
data?
seconds for them to
Yeah,
do it. Yeah, 10 minutes to collect it.
right.
And I tell them, like, fill it out first thing when you wake up. Like, it takes muscle memory to like get used to it. But I mean, I know I'm awake before all of them, so I'll shoot them a message at 5 in the morning and say, hey, fill out your wellness survey. I
Mm-hmm.
know the first thing you do is get on your phone and
Yep.
it's on your app. Like, I know you see the text.
Yeah.
So just do it. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing too, is like getting compliance with it and explaining to the athletes like why,
Right.
because like if they don't care and know that why you're using it, they're not going to do it.
Right.
um but yeah, that's, I think all of that is huge. And like, obviously, again, that's just wellness data, but then you combine wellness survey, tap test, vertical jump once a week, and even
Sprint
like a
times.
sprint. Yes, a sprint time. Like, that's a lot of data and can tell you a whole lot about if this volleyball player is ready for a match tomorrow. Like,
Sure.
if her, like, I just think the more touch points you can get, the better. And
Yeah.
again, like, we don't need/want to do all these physical max effort tests in season. So why not just do the wellness survey and the tap test or whatever, because it's
Mhm.
effortless
Mhm.
essentially.
Yeah. And if you're, if you have four stacks and if you have Nord boards and all this other stuff, I would highly recommend utilizing that. If you have GPS, I'd highly recommend utilizing that and trying to combine all of that, which can be a lot and cumbersome, but at the same time, you can start to get indicators from other areas, which allow you to have conversations like, we're fortunate enough to have that type of stuff. And so we utilize it on top of a wellness survey, on top of sprint times and counter movement jumps and force decks and GPSs and VBT even, like, like all that other stuff, right? Like you can just utilize as much as possible, but you have to know what you're looking for. And it's not always just to find out readiness. I mean, that's a huge part of it as well, but like obviously that progress and all this stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot that you can do that can give you indicators. But I also think like, hey, look, like Jill, how do you feel today? Like scale of 1 to 10.
Yep.
I feel 7. Okay, like is that good? Maybe, maybe not. Like you tell me. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you
Yep.
always operating at a 7? Okay, well then you're probably feeling pretty good, right? Like
Yeah.
it
Well,
just
and I
kind of
think
depends.
to that point, especially with in-season teams, I love VBT for that because obviously it's legitimately auto-regulating based on what they need.
Yeah.
Um, which honestly, and then that makes our lives a little bit easier because then you're like, I don't know what percentage to program, or like what speed to program, right? And then
Yeah. I
you're
think
worried like, oh, is this percentage going to be too heavy? It's like, well, if that kid feels really freaking good, he can go crush some weight. Vice
correct.
versa, feels like crap. Okay, instead of waiting for, like, yes, I get using coach's eye to watch bar speed, but also like I don't think that's one, we can't have our eye on every athlete.
I hate that argument so much because yes, you should use your coach's eye always, but your coach's eye cannot tell you how fast that bar is moving. And let alone every rep the athlete does doesn't mean it's done with full intent,
Yep.
right? But when I put a VBT on them, the intent goes up. I'm not saying it's full intent, but I'm saying the intent goes up. So if you're watching an athlete, like today, some of our athletes were benching and they were doing like 225 on bench, which for an athlete, that's not that much, right? And you could just see that the intent was not there, right? Like you can just see that in the rep in itself. Could I tell you the meters per second? No, but I could tell you the intent wasn't there. But it's like if you strap a VBT on that or you have perch or whatever else, the intent's going to go up and you can hold them accountable to that, right? Like holding them accountable to be like drive really hard and fast. Yes, and you should, but you can't quantify that.
Yep.
But when I say you did zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8 meters per second or 0.75 or whatever, it's easily quantifiable and they can see it. They get that instant feedback loop right away. I also really like it from a vertical integration standpoint. I find it much easier to have vertical integration amongst my training when I have a VBT. That doesn't mean I use it for every exercise because I don't, but for some of my major movements, absolutely. Because it just seems it's just easier for me to understand. Like from a percentage standpoint, yeah, I can program percentage, but I prefer VBT personally.
Yeah. Well, and one thing too that I love about VBT, um, and this is something that I want to continue to cultivate in within our department that a lot of our teams already do, is just it creates a competitiveness. Like they're competing with themselves every single rep. And I think that like if you want to win or build teams that win, like you have to build competitors, and that can't just be on your field or on your court or in your pool. Like you have to be a competitor in everything you do. And so there's a lot of ways. I mean, we're fortunate that like we have a lot of ways we can do that in the weight room, like straight up make competitions or whatever.
Yeah.
But like the
Yeah.
VBT thing,
Yeah.
like they're competing against themselves, but also it's like, hey, you and your partner, like who can move it faster or
Right.
like whatever. And that's one thing I've found is they like some of our athletes get after it, like trying to compete with that. And I think that that's huge. And
Mm-hmm.
I think with that, like in season, or you were gonna say something about
I
it.
just think athletes tend to lift more weight with VBT as well. And here's
Yeah.
why. is because the intent is there and you're not in your zone, get in your zone. And so naturally, for what the experience I've had, they lift more because it's not a matter of the weight on the bar for them anymore, right? It's a matter of like, I got to get in this zone, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like if I have regular athletes, whether you name the sport, and I'm like, yo, put 225 on, they're like, oh, 225. Like, come on, coach. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, get in the zone. And they're at like 245, 255. And they're like, oh, I'm like, you see how much more you're lifting? And I give them a really hard time about that. But I just find that's my experience so far. And it's been really good.
Yeah. And that's why I love VBT in the competitive sense and athletes pushing themselves. And then again, like
Mm-hmm.
in season, um, VBT, wellness surveys, like all of that stuff I think is great. Another thing I like to do that I've only done a few times, but like giving athletes more autonomy on like the decisions of the exercises. So like now I'm not letting them pick their whole lift, and it's like various times, like, do you want to lift or not? No, like, no, you don't get to choose that. But, because some of them would, but
Yes.
choosing like the push up variation that they
Mm-hmm.
do, like
Mm-hmm.
and I do like that's an example. I do a lot of different push up variations, like with baseball, especially like heavy conference season. Some of them not might not want to do a weighted push up, or some of them might want to do a weighted push up. Some of them want to do like we call it a reach push up, where they're getting their scaps like
Yeah.
reaching really far. Some of them want to do yoga push ups. Some of them want to do it from an incline because it feels better. Like just giving them autonomy on that, giving them autonomy on like their hip mobility, on their T
Sure.
spine mobility. I've even played around with like, we have one lift. We normally would lift twice. We only got one lift. So I'm like, okay, we're doing the same accessories, but you get to pick. Do you want to do your hand supported split squat or do you want to do trap bar? Or no, it was hand supported. No, what was it? No, it was trap bar deadlift or front squat. They got to
Sure.
pick, like obviously both bilateral. You could go into
Yeah.
the science of
Whatever.
how they're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
different, but
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
bilateral movements, whatever. You get to pick. But this is the weight, like I had the weight prescribed or whatever, the volume staying the same. You get to pick the movement. And then I think I had let them choose between their neutral grip bench or their landmine press. Again, I know they're not the same, whatever, but either way they were going to miss out on one of them, so I'm letting them choose what they want to do. And it's just one, it was interesting to see because I was like, oh, none of them are going to front squat, like, but it was a complete 50-50 divide on
Wow.
front squat and trap bar, which I know you said you haven't worked a ton of baseball, but baseball players love trap bar deadlift. So I was
They
like, they're all
love
going to do
trap
trap
bar.
bar.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
they completely split it, and it was just interesting because I was like, oh, I made them love front squat, like I love
Let's
that.
go. Come on
And
now.
so, and then, yeah, the NutriGrip bench and the landmine, it was a 50-50. Again, is it perfect system? No, but I think just giving them autonomy on what feels good for them that day in season, I think that holds a lot of value because then it shows like that we have that trust in them. And again, just allowing them to feel like they're creating it on their own too. But again, even as little as like, okay, we've taught you throughout the year 5 different T-spine mobilities. You get to pick which one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
love that. Or like, well, I've done this at my PT. Okay, whatever, do it. I don't care. But
Yeah.
like, whatever feels good for you, I'm okay with. Especially in season, especially once you get like to the thick of the end of conference, and like if you're an NCAA qualifier, like you got to do what feels good for them, because a lot of the athletes, just sports in general, they're all beat up by that point,
Yeah.
mentally, physically. So whatever we can do to make them feel good, I think holds a lot of value. And we stay, I mean, again, like we talked about, as long as we're staying healthy, like that's all that matters. And you're seeing improvements in
Yeah.
your performance and your results. So
Absolutely. I also think it's a confidence thing. Like,
yeah,
if this exercise is what helps you bring confidence, cool. Like,
yeah,
let's do
yeah.
it.
I guess another one we would do was like single leg squat of choice. So like
Sure.
some of them hate single or skater squats. Some of them like single leg squat to box. Like that was a huge one on the confidence piece, because like some of them could load that skater squat up and they were like, this makes me feel so good. And I'm like, great. I love that you are skater squatting 90 pounds. Like keep doing that,
Yeah.
please.
That's
But
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Let's switch gears here a little bit. So you are doing some mile runs. How did you get into that? Your goal that you're trying to reach? Kind of tell us about that a little bit.
Oh, speaking of, I still have to do my mile today. And it's for the people watching.
Uh-oh.
It's 9:30 at night, so I will do it. And if you follow me on Instagram, I will post it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. I love
but
that
no,
you do that, but I love that you do that, by the way. That you post it.
I stole it from Derek Stork. He's at Mizzou. He is
Mhm.
actually a Luther College alum.
Okay.
So he was a wrestler at Luther. That's
Mhm.
how I like know who he is. I think he
Mhm.
briefly was a strength coach at Luther. And then he was at Appalachian State. And I think that was his last stop before Mizzou. I don't actually know him. I just see him post it. I
Yeah.
think he recently just hit a year, like 365 consecutive days. And I was like, okay, that's freaking cool. And the reason I like there's so many challenges, like 75 hard. Like I've done it. I'm guilty. I did it. Like
I
hate on
loved
me.
it. I've
See,
done it. I've done it a couple of times. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna do
And
it
people
here.
hate on it. I get it. Like, and all these
Soft.
challenges, I get that they're not sustainable, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you just need something like that to kick you into gear. But
Facts.
I liked the mile because I'm like, it's so approachable. Like that's not a hard thing. Like,
Mm,
and he never on there said like you had to. I mean, I think he was running the mile,
yeah.
but like it's not like he posted the challenge. It was like you have to run a mile. It was like okay, I'm just gonna go a mile a day. So like
Sure.
I did just walk a mile the other day, but it was like it's in the intention of like I'm going to go out and it's a mile and it's not hard. Like it's
Yeah.
very approachable. And it's funny. I hope he doesn't mind me telling his business, but um, he said he did it because during football camp last year, he like ran back into the facility and was just very humbled. He was like, "Oh my god, I'm out of shape," and he said
Yep.
that's why he started it. And I was like, "That's hilarious." And I've only done
But a
it for
very true reality. But a
yes,
very, very true
yes.
reality.
Coaching shape is not the same as being in shape.
Well, that, but I mean, so if you look at um the people that are strength coaches are typically stronger people that we enjoy lifting, which is awesome. We despise any sort of conditioning, right? If you like go walk for 30 minutes to like, oh, the
Do it.
devil must have came
Yeah,
after you or whatever today, right? Like dead ass. And so um it's really funny because like, yeah, we can all probably lift a house, which is great, but like what about your metabolic health? What about your heart? Because you drink fucking enough coffee for everybody else and energy drinks every day and you lift, which is great, but like what about your cardiovascular health, right?
yeah,
And you like literally jog for 30 seconds and they're like like sucking wind and it's just like, okay, now is this all coaches? No, it's not. It's a large majority of them though.
yeah,
But so to that point, I'm gonna do a plug here, but I've been doing the coaches conditioning project. If you guys have seen that online, really good, highly recommend. Because I just like you're talking about needed something from an accountability standpoint, from a cardiovascular conditioning standpoint, because I am not in bad shape, but I'm like, I should probably have this in my program more often than what it currently is. Because I do enjoy going for walks, whether it's 30 minutes or 45 minutes, just to get outside and get away. And it's like kind of my way to detach. But at the same time, I'm like, I should probably like have a structured plan. But anyways, yeah, that's good. That's interesting that he did it for that reason, though.
yeah. Well, and like I will say, I haven't done more than a mile because I want to try and get my time down before I add
Sure.
distance.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be honest, there's no like I've done it where I do it at 8 o'clock at night and then the next morning I get up and do it at 6. Like I know that I'm not fully recovered, but it's like my whole point of it is to do it.
Yeah.
And I actually do feel better. Like even though some days my miles slower, like my legs are just dying, but like when I do run for like the Maybe Center at Jewel is big and spacious and I have ADHD and I don't want it takes me too long to get up to the coach's offices. So I always just run up to the coach's offices up the stairs just cuz it's faster. And like as I've been doing that this week, or the past couple weeks, I'm like, "Oh, like
It's not
I'm
too
not as
bad.
out of breath." Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say though, and I feel like every college campus has a stupid giant hill that you have to walk up. I might be wrong, but
Yeah.
that thing, it doesn't matter how many miles I run, I'm going to be humbled every time that I go up
Every
to upper
time.
campus because it's just like I'm trying to talk with my coworker, and I'm like, we can't talk right now. Like, I just need to breathe. Like, I can't. It's
Like
funny because
going
on
up a
my
couple flight of stairs, and then you're just like, "Am I in this
yeah,
bad
and
of
you're like,
shape?"
what?
Yeah, it's all
Well,
that
it's
epoch.
funny. My interview at Luther, when I was interviewing for the assistant position, they have a hill that separates like athletics from upper campus, and I was walking and talking to Miles, and it was like I felt like I was gonna die, and then
Yeah.
a coach stopped us and like wanted to talk with us, and I was just like, thank God, like
Like
this was like
I
my
couldn't
rest. I was
go
like, I
another
wasn't gonna
step.
make it up there. Like, but
Yeah.
no, seriously, I do feel better, just a mile. And I do want to, the furthest I've ever run, I played volleyball in college. I
Mhm.
didn't need to have like very super awesome aerobic endurance,
Mhm.
obviously. So the furthest I've ever ran without stopping is 2.2 miles. So I'd
Sure.
love to try, and even like people are like, yeah, I went for a short run today, 5 miles. And I'm like,
Yeah. Okay, superstar.
what? Like, that would be the whole world would know if I ran 5 miles. Like, I would post
Yeah.
it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I would take myself out for so many espresso martinis afterward. It would be, yeah.
You want to know something though? I bet you could run 5 miles right now. You would just have to push past the mental block.
Yes, that's the thing with running. That's the thing with running for sure. Once you get, for me, the mental block is like the first minute and a half. No, like the first, okay, like the
Every
first
step.
0.15, the first 0.15 is like, oh, I'm good. And then from like
Yeah.
0.15 to just over a quarter, I'm dying.
Yeah.
And then it's like after that, I'm like, oh, I could keep going.
Mm.
And maybe I should try sometime just to see, because like I know, like, oh, I'm stopping at a mile. Like,
Yeah.
and I do just
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be interesting to see. Sometimes I take my dog with me, and she slows me down a little bit because she just
Yeah.
had like, she'll like abruptly stop to smell something. So I'm like, can get yanked to the side. But it's good for her aerobic endurance too.
She
So
needs it. But I bet you could go a lot far. I know you could go a lot farther than a mile. You just gotta just do it.
we'll see.
Because if I can do it, you can do it legitimately, right? Like, and I have to do like our army tests and stuff, and like, whatever. But if I can do it, you can do it. Like, you
Okay,
just have to
I
get
will
past.
try.
You just have to get past the mental block. You just have to like focus on everything else but running. The thing is, when
Right.
I run, I get so freaking bored because it's such a repetitive task, and I'm just like, I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again. I just get so bored, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, this sucks. And then I just
That's
like
why I
go
couldn't
down.
run on a treadmill. I can't do a treadmill.
I
I
just
have to
go
be
down this
outside.
negative thought process of everything. When I start running, I'm just like, man, screw this. Like it gets bad.
Yeah.
And then I like recognize that I'm down that thought process. And I'm like, all right, this like let me pull myself out of this. But
Yeah.
it's brutal. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, like, man,
Well,
why did
no,
I do
running
this?
outside is better too,
Mm-hmm.
but then you get used to your neighborhood, and that's like where I'm at now. I'm like, I'm bored. I do the
Yeah.
same
Little
run, so I
loop.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, like I know exactly where I'm gonna hit the mile. So then you see the sign, like the stop sign that you know you always hit a mile at, and you're like I can't wait for it to get here. So sometimes I'll drive to a
Yeah.
different location just to
Yeah.
run,
Yeah.
which is nice sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, I have enjoyed it. Shout out to Derek Stork for, he doesn't even know. I actually got one of the athletic trainers at Jewel is doing it too. So
That's
he's
huge.
got 2 people in his fan club.
That's
Probably
what's
more.
up.
But yeah, so shout out to him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, last question for you. Okay, so we kind of talked about this a little bit, and I'm always interested from this standpoint. And if anybody's listening, when you are thinking about this, I just want you to take a step back real fast and kind of just understand this. So, one of the things that occurs with strength coaches when they take over a director's position or when they get promoted and it's their first time running the show, not only is it that they have coaching responsibility, they also then have administrative leadership roles and responsibilities. And one of the things I've recognized throughout my time, only because I've had extensive leadership opportunities with the military, being commanders, executive officers, platoon leaders of a lot of money, a lot of equipment, a lot of people, and we're not talking small amounts, we're talking large amounts of all of that, is I've had opportunities to fail dramatically as leaders, as a leader. And now I can kind of take a step back and recognize, like, hey, it's not this person's inability to coach that's presenting or preventing the program from moving further. It's actually their leadership skills. It's actually their organizational skills. It's actually their ability to future forecast, plan ahead, and start planting seeds now. And so I see that a lot. More more than what I would maybe like to admit is how often I see that. But it's really interesting. So it's like there's a two-pronged approach. You're not only dealing with that person's ability to do the job, you're dealing with their ability to lead people inside of a department. And typically it's the first time that person's ever been in a leadership position, right? That's like you're the guy or you're the girl. What is kind of your approach, thought process as you take over a department? And as you start to say, what do I want this department to look like? And here's what I'm willing to stand for, and here's what I'm not willing to stand for.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm lucky to have worked with Gage, and the fact that he kind of built the program from the ground up, and he was there for 5 years. And again, lucky that it's not like it's 10 years later that I'm coming back. It's a year and a half. So having been able to, like, obviously have him as a resource, but then still I talk with the coaches that were just here, um really just talking to them about like what worked for the department, what didn't work, talking with sport coaches, like what did you find value in from these coaches, what do you think we need to change. And obviously, again, at the end of the day, like, I'm making the decisions. um but I think it's important, again, and we talked about this, like, we are here to serve the athletes. So it's like, yes, like, I can have opinions on the way I think we should run this and this and this, but if that's only going to make my life easier and no one else's of the 600 athletes we have, like, is it going to benefit them? Maybe not, or like whatever those decisions are. So, like, I'm not afraid to ask a volleyball player, hey, what do you want out of this experience? Like,
Yeah.
like, I think, again, with that buy-in piece, that piece that, like, they feel like they have a say. And I mean, at the Division 2 level, at the Division 3 level, it's a lot of the role of athletics is the student athlete experience. And if they're not having a good experience, they're probably not retaining athletes, and you're probably not going to have a job, because your job is to make their experience better. And so sometimes making the decision based on the student athlete experience might not be the decision you want to make, but it's ultimately the decision you have to make, because there's 600 of them and there's one of you. Now, like, obviously, logistics standpoint, safety, whatever, like, make the decisions that make sense. But I've Gage taught me, like, at the Division 2 level, you've got to do a lot of the decisions based off of the student athlete experience. And ours at Jewel, our student athletes fill out I don't know if it's the end of every semester or the end of every season, they do a review, like, on every person that they came in contact with: head coach, head coach, AT, strength coach, admin, sports supervisor, SWA. I mean, they review everyone. And again, like the wellness survey, we're taking the opinions of 18 to 22-year-olds. Like, they're not, like, gonna fire you over it unless it's a legitimate, like, across the board these problems.
Right.
But I will say, when Gage when Gage was there, across the board, lifting, weight room, athletic performance was every athlete's favorite part of the day.
Yeah.
And if they're not enjoying their time in the weight room, or in practice, in the class, whatever it is, if they're not enjoying what they're doing, they're not going to give 100% effort. And so, again, like, that's the piece that's so important to me. Student athlete experience, that comes from you showing you care about the athlete and asking for their feedback, asking for what they like and don't like, getting to know them. Like, that is the approach that I want my staff to take. Because, yes, I think the X's and O's are so important. And yes, like, we're going to do continuing ed. We're going to do all of that important stuff. But you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't know how to approach people, you
Yeah.
can't do this job. And so that's what's really important to me. And that's what I've told every single one of my sport coaches. That's what I've shared with my staff. That's what I've shared with, I mean, I'm very vulnerable with our athletes. I'm like, this is important to me. It's important to me that you know that I care about you and that I know your name, and that like that's why I'm asking you what's your favorite color. Like dumb stuff, but like at the end of the day, they can never say after working with me for a year of getting to know me, like Coach JB didn't care about me, because I'm going to make it very known that I do. And another silly thing that I do, this is kind of not part of the question, but I just thought of it. Um, I do a question of the day. So like with
Yes,
my team, I mean, every
yes, I
day.
love them.
Yeah.
I
Every
love
day.
them.
And me and Coach Clifton actually we were creating a Google spreadsheet of like, okay, like we were so serious about it. Like we were
Yeah,
like, we
yeah,
have to
yeah,
ask
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I had a soccer player at Luther send me like the longest list, and the questions were crazy. It was
Great,
awesome. But
great.
like who, what, what was one of them? It was like, what type of food describes your personality? Or like, I don't even, that was not the right
Sure.
verbiage.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what, like, just silly stuff like that. But then it's like, sparks them, one, they're using their brains, they have to think.
yeah.
And then they're like, oh, like, just another way, even not even me, like, they get to know their teammates, things they didn't know about their teammates, like their teammates' favorite food, Nike or Adidas. Like, there's a big controversy there, you know? And
Yeah.
so, just all of that. So
Yeah.
I'd say, to fully answer your question, because I know I ramble a lot. So hopefully, if people made it to this point, I'm
They will. They're
sorry.
very loyal
Thank
listeners.
you.
Yeah.
But I think just my, like, the way I lead is, and I think the way every strength coach should be leading is by being a servant leader and doing
Yeah.
what you can to serve your athletes.
Yeah.
And that's, I think we can't be selfish. I think, like, right, there's like things you need to be selfish about, but when it comes to like doing our job, no matter of pay, no matter of whatever, like, we're here to serve the athletes in the best way we can with what we've got, whether that means we have the resources or we don't. Like, we are here to serve them. And so that's the biggest thing that I've honed in with my staff, and I continue to like repeat that verbiage, like relationships, relationships, relationships. Like, don't just stand there and not talk to them. Like, go in, dive in, get to know them. Gage forced me to do that, and I was never the type of person. I can't believe that I'm a strength coach. Like, the kind of person that
Yeah.
I was so, I mean, I'm still pretty awkward. You don't lose that, but I was I was so shy, and I like was scared of even like, as a senior on my volleyball team, I was scared to like say something in the circle at practice, like, "Hey, I think we did this well," or like, I was just not a leader, and I thought that I would never be able to be. But like, I will say, like, as a GA, I was thrown into the fire, and that's how I think grad assistantships should be. I was absolutely thrown into the fire. I was not ready to take that role on, um, because I did an internship prior to that, and um, was told by the staff that I was not ready to be a GA. And again, are you ever ready?
Right.
And now, like, if I would have just been out of college and been like, yeah, I want to be a GA, never even looked at a strength and conditioning book, like, or like,
Yeah.
right, that's different. But like, if you've prepared, like, you are ready. And so I say all that to say that that is why I want to lead that way, because I was thrown into all of that. And that's, to me, like, that's the best. I've seen the best results out of athletes that know that I care about them.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's my answer. Sorry, I went on a little ramble there, but
No, you're good. It's I love it when people just go on their tangents and go, because I think that's when they're really speaking from the heart.
yeah,
You know, like that's when they're really speaking their truth, and that's when they're really speaking like, this is me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Rather than this perfect polished, oh, I'm going to lead by doing blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, cool. But like, tell me how Joe Brown is going to do it. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
I think another piece of like that is like being authentic and true to who I am. Like I right, like there are kids that every kid needs like might need coached differently, but
Mm,
that doesn't mean you have to be a different person to coach them in just like the way that you approach it. I don't know if that makes sense.
mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
so I'll just use an example um of a kid that I had that just the more I don't know how to word it. I've never really had to struggle with conflict. And I've been fortunate that I have athletes that just do what I ask them to do. And so this was a really good learning experience for me. I had a kid who just I found out later he felt that I called him out and I understand like where we were coming from.
Yep.
Um but I told him after the conflict like gave him we had a week off and I approached him and I was just like, hey, we know what happened. Like, this happened. What can I do to best, like, coach you? Like, now you can't tell me, don't talk to me. Like, because
Yeah.
it's my job.
That's not an answer.
Yeah. But, like, I want, like, what do I need to, like, how do I need to coach you? Like, because obviously,
Mm,
like, me asking you how your day's going, like, maybe you just don't want to like you don't want me to ask you that. Like that's
yeah.
okay. Like I'm going to coach you if like your form is bad, I'm going to tell you. But
Yeah.
like how do I need to approach you best? And
Mm,
we had a really good conversation and but again, I told him like I'm not going to be a different person and I'm not asking you to be a different person, but we have to figure something out. And I think things have been really good since. But I think that's a big piece. Like I want myself and my staff to be very authentic to who we are. Right? Like now, like if you go out and party all the time on the weekends, yeah, I don't want you talking about that to the athletes. They don't need to know that. But like just be authentic and be yourself because again, the athletes read into the fake, the BS, the crap if you're lying to them.
yeah.
Especially if you're trying to make them practice things that you obviously don't preach. Like or
Yes.
yeah, practice what you preach. Or you don't practice what you preach. That's the
There
right
you
thing.
go.
Like obviously, like we said, we talk about go to bed at 8:30 and blah blah blah
Yeah.
and like we stay up. But like for the most part, we know the effects of sleep, and we try to get sleep. Like even if you're going to bed at midnight, it's because you know you can maybe sleep in a little bit tomorrow or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I think just authenticity and cultivating genuine relationships.
Well, and also to that point, like if you're talking to them, like for instance, about nutrition, right? Because like we don't have dietitians, we don't have nutritionists, and I think there's a lot of people, so you kind of play that role as well. One of the things, like I just start off, I'm like, I'm going to provide you with this information. I'm going to let you know that I'm not 100% perfect at this. Okay. Like I make an attempt every day to be good at this, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that I don't drink pop or soda or go to a fast food restaurant or anything like that. Because if so, I would be a hypocrite. Right. And I think that helps bring like their barriers down because if you're telling them like, you should have this much protein at every meal and you should have et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, hey, look, like I want you to do that. You should do that. I'm going to push you to do that. Right. I'm going to do that myself as well. Right. But that doesn't mean just like you don't, I won't go and grab some Dairy Queen or something because Dairy
Yep.
Queen's where it's at. Right. And if you're not eating Dairy Queen, I don't know what's wrong with you. But this episode is sponsored by Team Builder. Team Builder is the #1 performance platform for strength coaches around the world. Their software provides coaches with an elevated experience when it comes to program development, data tracking, and staying connected with athletes and clients. Coaches also have access to consultations with Team Builder's in-house sports scientists to help manage and analyze data. Head to teambuilder.com and sign up with promo code TABLE to start your free 30-day trial. That is TeamBuilder, TeamBuildr.com, and sign up with promo code TABLE to start your free 30-day trial. Coaches, this podcast is sponsored by Samsung Equipment. They have been providing elite strength training equipment and professional weight room solutions since 1976. If you value product quality, great customer service, and a company with integrity, make Samsung Equipment your go-to. Visit them at samsungequipment.com and let them know the Coaches Table podcast gave you a seat at their table. That is Samsung Equipment, SAMSON equipment.com, and let them know the Coaches Table podcast gave you a seat at their table. I think if you just tell them up front, right? But I also think there's a ton of value of them seeing you make the attempt. And what I mean by that is I firmly believe your athletes should, and I don't mean like see you train, but like they should know that you train. I firmly believe that they should see you eating food that maybe you've prepared, right? And then they ask, oh, hey, what you eating there? I firmly believe that they should see you reading or do some sort of professional development because it sparks conversation and they see you doing it. And that's important because you are a role model to them. Whether you want to be or don't want to be, you do influence their life, whether you want to or don't want to, just by the sheer amount of time in which you spend with them. And so if they come into your office and you're reading or you're watching a professional video or you're listening to whatever the case may be, and you're eating your food and you're drinking your water and you're doing whatever, or you just got done with the workout and you're sweating profusely and you're in your office and then they walk in, they are like, hey, that person's real. They're doing what they say, right? They're not perfect, you're not perfect, and they don't expect you to be, but if you put that effort in and they see it, they respect you more for it.
Yeah, I think especially the training piece, like that is, and I'll be honest, I have not been training as much. I've been running though. I've been going on my mile run. But that's a big part of why I post my training on my
I
social
was
media.
just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Your athletes watch you more on social than what they do in person.
Yep.
And I'm not saying just to CYA yourself, but I'm saying like if you show proof of you doing it, they see it. Whether you want to have them see it or not, or whether you don't know it or not, your athletes watch you on social.
Yeah. And so, and like to that point, like posting your meal that you cooked or posting you going for a walk, posting like again, like they're always on their phone. They don't always have the opportunity to just go into your office. So,
Correct.
yeah, what you do in your office and don't post is important, but I think that's why it is really valuable. Like social media, as much as a lot of coaches probably hate it, that's where our athletes are at. That's where our field is at. Like I was just talking with someone today, like, yeah, I get to be on a podcast. And they're like, "Oh, who is it?" I was like, "Oh, Kendrick. I don't even know him. I met him on Instagram. Like, like that's how I've networked and like met so many coaches that I don't actually know. But like, I have banter with coaches all the time, like literally just from Instagram. And so I just think social media does, yes, like it has so much value. And not that like you need to be posting every single lift every single time, but like there is value if your athletes follow you. Like, oh shoot, coach is back squatting today, or oh shoot, coach ate a really good looking meal. Like all of that, yes, like 100%. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's got so much value.
Also, like to that, and then from a professional standpoint, I think you can really separate yourself on social because the vast majority of strength coaches are not on social media, or they don't care to be, or they don't have time for it. Whatever. I just don't subscribe to any of that. But you can really separate yourself as a authority figure, as somebody that's doing the right things, regardless of D1 Power 5, Group 5, D2, D3. It doesn't freaking matter. There's high school strength coaches that showcase their stuff and people are like, this person really knows what they're doing. Why? Because they showcase it, right? And so I think there's a lot of coaches that should put their stuff out there more. I know there was always this like hesitancy of like, I don't want to show them what I'm doing. It's like, okay, whatever. Like it's not the lift that you're designing that's what's making it. It's you coaching it. And unless they can clone you, like you tell me. But anyways, I just think it's so powerful. I think it's also a great opportunity for you to kind of set the record straight and help athletes because there's so many TikTok and shitfluencers and all these other people out there that are just putting out terrible stuff. And if you're so qualified, if you're so smart and so intelligent, why don't you put it out there? right?
Yeah.
Because it can help set the record straight. People will recognize you as an authority. And if you're concerned about what people think, who cares? It's not
Yeah.
their life. They aren't paying your bills, and they're not writing you a check, But if
Yeah.
you do put yourself out there, there are people that are willing to write you a check, but they don't know about you until you put yourself out.
Yeah.
I'm a
Well,
huge
I think
advocate for it.
another piece, another thing too is the authenticity piece. Like you can be whoever you want to be on social media. And if you pretend to be someone else on social media, it's real easy to see once you see them in person.
Yep.
And so I think like I'll post my athletes lifts sometimes. Mostly I mostly don't because it's just me, so I don't want to be like in their face with a camera. It's not that I'm like, oh, I have this secret sauce of
Yeah, 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 yeah.
programming because like I don't know what I'm doing. But but um I think that the reason that I've been able to gain like I have a pretty large I mean I have over 3,000 followers, and granted I mean, I've lived in 5 states, like just people I know in general,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the people that I have on Instagram specifically are strength coaches, and I do think that like because of the genuine connections I've created with people I have met, they
Mm-hmm.
share something from me and then they realize, "Oh, this person is being a genuine human." Like
Yep.
now I want to follow them. Like
Yep.
that's the kind of like that's the interactions I have with coaches. Like I don't even know when we started following each other. And
Yeah.
I think you randomly were just like, "Oh, that's a cool video." Or one of us was like,
Something
"That's a
like that.
cool
Yeah. Yeah.
something."
Yeah.
Like I don't actually even know.
Yeah. Me
But
either.
it's like just genuine connection with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that's I think the again, like
Mm-hmm.
that's the type of people we all should be striving to be, is authentic, genuine servant leaders in this field. And I just don't know that there's enough of that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And if we want to, like, I also think that there's so many like gatekeepers, which I disagree with. That are you got to do X amount of years before you can make X amount, and you didn't do what I did, so you're not um ready, or you don't get to have this, blah 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 blah. Like, look, I've been there, I've done that stuff. I've been to ranger school, I've worked with special operations, I've done all these like past this gate to be welcomed into the club type stuff, right? And like strength coaches, like, you didn't work 100 hours for $20,000 a year, you don't get to freaking. And I'm just like, do you realize how dumb you sound when you say that? Like, it's like we have all these skills, we have all these master's degrees, we have all these PhDs now, and it's like, are you going to be compensated appropriately for your PhD? No. Okay, well, is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. You tell me, but like, I know doctors that make hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know people with no degrees that make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so, it's kind of funny from that standpoint for me. I just think there's so many people that want to be, or that were, I don't think it's that much anymore, but still a little bit, that are like these gatekeepers that like, whether aren't willing to go to bat for you, aren't willing to push more money, and the whole admin thing is another conversation in itself. But it's just like, if we're going to be a valued member of the team, let me have a seat at the table and let me get paid appropriately, you know?
Yep.
And that to me is just like, yeah. But it's funny because like now strength coaches are becoming recognized more and more for their value that they're providing. And it's like, yeah, we do logistics. Yeah, we work with multiple teams. Like, if you're a sport coach and you only focus on your one team, like, that's great. But like strength coaches that work with 5, 6, 7 teams, or 3 teams, or have to consider all the teams around them for scheduling, for logistics, for programming, like, that's a lot more brain power than you've been like, well, we always practice at 1, so we're always going to do that. Like, that doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, logistically
Yep.
speaking, it doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like a strength coach would be like, hey, can we make a schedule change? And coaches will be up in arms about that stuff. And it's just like, well, we're doing it because it benefits 5 other teams. And so, like, it shouldn't be a big deal. But it's like the end of the world because they're like, it's going to ruin our mojo, or we've always done it this way. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, that doesn't really matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you want me to be adjustable, but you can't be like that. It's just stuff like that that I just get really frustrated with. And So it's like you do all of that for them to tell you when you're going to do your job. And it's like, I thought you hired me to do the job. Like,
Yeah, my favorite is when a sport coach comes into your office and is like, "I know you're the expert, but," and then proceeds to tell
proceeds to
you
tell
what
you
you
what
should
you
be
should
doing.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
You're like, "Hmm,
sure, sure,
okay." I
sure.
will say I have had coaches. I've been very fortunate to work with great sport coaches,
Yeah.
and the story I'm about to tell you, this sport coach ended up being one of my favorite. They
Mm,
just had a lot to learn. They were very old school, and I this is something that I was very transparent with my sport coaches about in our meeting. I told them it's not my job to make your athlete better at soccer. It's not my
correct.
job to make your basketball player better at basketball. It's not my job to make your swimmer better at swimming. That is your job. Now, what we're going to do is make them faster, more explosive, stronger, more resilient. I'm going to build you a better athlete to work with
Correct.
to develop those skills. And a lot of I can't even say a lot, but some sport coaches think that like what we do in the weight room needs to mimic their sport. And I'm like, no, you'll never see a golf ball, a tennis ball. Oh, okay, you will see those in the weight room, but like for different purposes, like
They're
to
not
roll out.
for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you're not bringing a racket in here, you're not kicking a soccer ball, you're not throwing a football. And I had a sport coach once, tennis players doing trap bar deadlift. He said, they're never in this position. They're always on their toes. And I said, exactly. That's why we're working the backside. And and also like that actually, if you look at the bottom of a trap bar deadlift, that kind of is their like ready stance, but
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but just like, yeah, I was just like, what? Like, and I had to explain, like, look, everything we do is not going to look like your sport because you're already getting thousands of reps at your sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to talk injury? There you go. Make
Overused.
us,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's just swing the racket 9 more thousand times in the weight room for no reason. But that just was really interesting, and that's why I brought that point up to all the sport coaches. I'm like, we're not sport specific. That's the stupidest term. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I get like injury specific to sport ish, but like if you and I've told like people this, like if you look at my programs across my teams, they won't differ a lot. Now, like, okay,
Right.
yes, like off season, in season, whatever.
Sure.
But like, and like we talked about, they're all gonna squat, hinge, push, pull, carry. Like they're gonna sprint, they're gonna jump, they're gonna throw, they're
There
gonna
you
crawl.
go. Yeah. If you're
Like
an
they're all gonna
athlete,
do it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's funny on those surveys, we had um a golf or no, a football player, and they're all anonymous, so we actually have no idea who says what. We
Sure.
had a football player say, "Why are we doing the same lifts as golf? Golfers shouldn't be squatting." What? Like, show me why.
Cool. Thanks for your
Tell me
input.
why.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, actually, yeah, they should. They should be freaking strong as crap,
Yeah.
and they should front squat heavy. And I'm like, there are some golfers that can't even get in that position. So the fact that we can get them there,
Is a
like, that's
huge
amazing.
dub. Yeah, it's a
You
huge
know?
dub. Yeah.
So, yeah, the term sports specific just irks me.
Well, the thing that's frustrating, and for those that are listening, this is not all sport coaches, but we've all come across sport coaches that we've had these interactions with. The thing that is frustrating for me is everybody wants to have an influence or a say on what they think we should do, but they don't want anybody to have a say on what they think they should do. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? And so that's really frustrating. I also try to educate coaches on like tactical periodization of practices, and then the 4 or 5 coactive model, whatever one you kind of want to believe it in, but the 4 coactive model or 5 coactive model, which is kind of the same. It's literally the same thing, but like you just identify player health as the central metric. And then so it's like, are you familiar with that? Like the coactive model and stuff. So like physical, technical, and psychological, and all of those kind of intertwine into player health. And it's like when you look at the physical realm, that's our world as strength and conditioning or sport professional, or strength and conditioning, sport performance professionals, whatever title you want to throw it on there. And then the technical is going to be your coaching staff, so your sport coaches that work the skill. which is obviously like the technical component of shooting a ball, hitting a ball, whatever. And then the tactical component of it is like in this particular situation, right? And then the psychological realm, which factors into all of it, which we should say is like sports psychologists' world, which it is, but it's also everybody else's kind of job and secondary duty, right? One thing that we influence a lot, which is why I see a lot of coaches as like motivational speakers as well. And so it's like, okay, well, when we look at that, like we can merge the two, right? And if we look at like dynamic correspondence theories and things of that nature on how we can manipulate particular exercises to reflect sport positions, sport times, angles, things of that nature, then yes, right? But like to your point, I mean, 90% of what we do is GPP, right? Like, and you can use Vonderchuk, you can use dynamic correspondence. I mean, you pick it, you name it, but like we can only go up to certain stuff, like the competitive exercise is the competitive exercise,
Yep.
right? And that includes all the skill, all the technical and technical components to that. And so like, we can only help so much, right? We can build you a better product to do better stuff with. But at the end of the day, if the athletes aren't working on their skills, we can make them as available as possible and give them the capacity to do X. But if they don't have the skill, like they're good at their sport, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter as much, right? But now if you combine solid training with skill acquisition and skill development, now you have somebody that's like, whoa, okay, you've been doing some work, right? And you can see it. But if you don't have that skill component, like, sorry, you're just not going to be good. Like you're just not going to be good. If you can't put the ball in the hoop, I can't help you. I mean, I can't help you.
No,
like
absolutely.
I can shoot, I can show you that, but like you need skill development,
Yep.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
It's really interesting from that standpoint. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts,
I like it was your turn to ramble there.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's just like there's so many people that like, okay, like we may know what that stuff is, but like there's so many coaches still that have no idea. Like if we were to say, hey, like, go read the book Game Changer by Fergus Conley, they'd be like, I've never heard of that in my entire life. It's like, well, you should probably read this because I think your eyes would be open tremendously.
Yeah.
You should read The Process and all these other things and then structure your stuff based off of that, or at least give it some thought. But if you talk to somebody, if you even mention technical, that is far enough for some people. They're like, I don't even know the difference between the two. And it's like, well, we got a lot of work to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, but, and some people just aren't interested in that at all. Like, hey, coach, you want to talk about like how we can periodize practice so like our athletes can recover? Because that is what it's all based around is athletes recovering. Because if you crush them every single day and they don't recover, how do you expect them to play well during a game?
Mental toughness.
Mental toughness. Oh god. Yeah, mental toughness. But anyways, so I'm gonna give you the floor, Joe. Anything you want to wrap up on?
I don't think so. I think that I talked a lot. So
That's okay. That's okay.
No, I think we covered a lot. I think yeah, I don't have anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's good. I just want to let you know that I appreciate you, what you're doing, what you have been doing, where you've been, and everything that you got going there. I'm excited for you in your new role. And excited to kind of see how that turns out for you and what a great job you're going to do. So I just want to let you know I appreciate you on that. And that this was great. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is my first podcast.
Let's
so
go.
I'm really excited. I'm honored. And I think you're doing great stuff too. I love following what you're doing on social. I know you said you haven't been posting as much.
Yeah.
But I still think just having this podcast, like you're able to connect and network and learn a lot and provide us other coaches value. So thank you a lot for this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been working. I got some things coming down the pipe that I'm super excited to release. But I'm keeping that in the dark right now. I'll let you guys know right now that I'm super pumped for it, but I just gotta finish it first. So I'm pumped for it. But I love the podcast. The podcast is so fun. It's great to connect with people like you, and other coaches. And just talk about commonalities, talk about what we see, what we got going on, life, all that stuff as well, and like just get to know people. Yeah, sure, we like record it, but I mean, whatever,
We were
like
talking for an hour before we recorded,
I know,
so
and now we're an hour and a half in. It's okay. So last thing, and then we're killing this. But it's so crazy because before I started the podcast, I was like looking at like Rogan and a couple of the other like really really big podcasts like Andy and stuff like that, and like Jocko or whatever. And I'm like, yo, these guys are going for like 2-3 hours. I'm like, how the hell am I going to do 30 minutes? Like I could talk to a wall, but I'm just like, there's no way. And what's crazy is like, we could have easily, like, if we started recording when we first started talking, we'd be at like the 3 hour mark, And it's so crazy how you can get that so fast and it doesn't feel like that. You know what I'm saying?
no.
You're like, oh
Yeah.
shit. Like, but so I try to be respectful. I try to like keep people within a respectable time frame, but more times than not, when we start talking with people, and especially it's like your first time actually getting to know them, we just talk for hours, and it's just like cool. Like I really enjoyed that aspect of it. That's why I really like doing this, is because I just get to talk to people and ask
Yeah.
questions and learn and everything from that.
That's super awesome. Yeah. 3 hours later.
Crazy. So, all right, let's wrap this up. Hey guys, look, here's the deal. If you got something from this, all right, share the show. If you seriously though, if you got entertained, if you got educated, if you had a thought process that like, man, I think the same thing, do us a huge favor, share the show, okay? Send it to a friend, let somebody know that this would benefit them, and then leave us a review, okay? Those are the two big things that we ask for you to do. We would appreciate that very much. Do us a huge favor, go follow Jill on social media and reach out to her. Let her know what a great job she did as well. Jill, where can they follow you at?
Shoot, I don't even. And Instagram _Jill Brown, I
Got it.
think.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Nothing. I don't use Twitter or anything else, but Instagram.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go follow Jill. She's awesome. And she'll run a mile every day for you. So,
yes.
all right, guys. Hey, we'll catch you on the next one.